Okay, you are going to be responsible for completing your pink sheet of paper of notes. These notes are going to be added into your booklet. I will model that for you when I get back to class. So I will be checking and stamping that you have the pink sheet completed. Really, we just have to do the table and the examples. And then we'll do the second part of our notes, which is the white sheet. And then the second video will be of your video explanation for the packet. So on the pink sheet, you should have this. This is 10.3 SOHCAHTOA. The first thing we need to make sure you know, because in order to do SOHCAHTOA, is the parts of the triangle. Now, just a recap. This little symbol right here, circle it. This symbol, or sometimes it looks like a 0 with a line through it. This is the symbol for theta. Basically, we use that for an angle measurement. I'm going to rewrite this so you have room. It's a symbol for an angle. Also, we could use this symbol over here, which looks like a B. This is the Greek symbol for beta. It's also used for the angle. In order to do trig ratios, you have to know the parts. And this very first part of labeling is important, because if you can't label the parts correctly, you're not going to get to your ratios correctly. You have to label the parts in relationship to the angle. So notice I circled the angle, I circled that symbol, and now I'm going to label the parts of the right triangle. Well, the one part that always remains the same is the hypotenuse, because it's always opposite the right angle. Okay? Now, everything else that we label after the hypotenuse, you always label your hypotenuse first, is in relationship to the angle. This arrow is pointing across to the other side. That is opposite. Opposite the angle theta. And this angle, this arrow here is pointing to the left, or trying to show next to. This is adjacent. So we have opposite and adjacent. I don't know if you can read that. Alright, adjacent, another way to think of it is next to. It's next to the angle. So, remember, if I go across to the other side of an angle that's opposite, if I'm right next to the angle that's adjacent, and the hypotenuse is always the hypotenuse. So what I want you to do is see if you can label the parts for our beta, for the triangle with the beta. I'm going to pause and let you try it. Or you pause the video and try it. Alright, start with, hopefully you started with the hypotenuse, which is E. So hypotenuse. And then D would be opposite. I'm just going to do OPP for abbreviate opposite. And F is the adjacent. ADJ, I'm going to do S for adjacent. Alright, so our trig ratios have to do with those relationships are the parts of a right triangle. The trigonometric ratios are what we call SO, which is sine, opposite of hypotenuse. SOHCAHTOA is the acronym to help you remember it. And I'm going to give you the definition for each. So S is for sine. Another way to look at it, to get the sine, we do O over H, which basically means you're going to do the opposite side of an angle to the hypotenuse. Alright, yeah, over hypotenuse, sorry about that. So what we're going to do is, looking at our triangle that we have up here, we're going to label our ratio, our letters that we have to represent the sides of opposite over hypotenuse. So on our theta, our red triangle, opposite was C, so this would be C over hypotenuse, which was B, C over B. See if you can do the sign of beta. I'll give you a minute. Use your letters to represent opposite and hypotenuse. Alright, hopefully you should have got D over E. Alright, now cosine. That's our capital C, K. That is A over H. Okay? Which represents adjacent, the adjacent side of an angle over hypotenuse. And I'm just going to abbreviate. So if I'm doing the cosine of theta, the adjacent side would be the A over hypotenuse, which is still B. See if you can do the cosine of beta. Which letter side represents adjacent to beta? Absolutely right if you did F over E. And then the last trig ratio we have is tangent. That is our TOA, which is capital T for tangent and then O over A. What do you think that's going to represent? That's going to be the opposite side over the adjacent side. I'm just going to abbreviate, sorry. So opposite over adjacent. So if I'm looking at the theta, opposite theta was C, and the adjacent was A. So this would be C over A. See if you can do tangent of beta. Tangent of beta. Hopefully you have D over F. So on the next part that we're going to look at is our examples writing our trig ratio, remembering our definitions, using the definition. So you're going to need to do the side part of your paper, okay? So on this next one, number 3, to do the sine of A, since A is our angle, we're going to circle that, and then we're going to label everything in relationship to the angle. We start with always the hypotenuse, which is opposite the right angle. So 13 is the hypotenuse. Then we do what's opposite, which would be 12. I'm just going to abbreviate. And then 5 would be the adjacent. So label your parts. Now we're just going to write the ratio. The sine of A for sine, that is opposite over hypotenuse. Well, what side is opposite? That's 12 over 13. And that's our ratio. To do the cosine of A is adjacent over hypotenuse. So that ratio would be 5 over 13. And then the tangent of A is opposite over adjacent, and that would be 12 over 5. Now they asked for the measure of angle A. I'll have to do that with y'all to show you that. But we're going to go on, and same with the trig function. So we're going to skip 1 through 4 on this side. But we're going to go to this bottom example where it says determine which angle of a triangle is angle A. All right, so angle A is going to be either angle 1 or angle 2. That's what we're trying to figure out. Now, since this is sine of A, sine is always opposite over hypotenuse. That lets me know that since the 4 is on top, 4 represents the opposite side, and 5 is the hypotenuse. So what relationship could give me a 4 over 5? Okay, so I don't have a 4 over 5, but I could do 8 over 10. That would also equal 4 over 5 when I reduce it. So that lets me know that 8 is the opposite side. So I look opposite 8, that would be angle 1. So angle A is angle 1 for this to work. Now we have the cosine of A is 0.6. Cosine of A is 0.6. Well, 0.6, this is read 6/10. So that's the same as 6 over 10. Cosine, that's adjacent over hypotenuse. Well, if I have 6 over 10, 6 is the adjacent side. Well, I have a 6 right here. And then I also have 10. That's the hypotenuse. So what angle would be adjacent to 6? Right next to it. That's angle 1. Okay? Angle 1. So now we have the tangent of 0.75. Well, the tangent 0.75, I can change that to 3/4. That's the same thing. We need the ratio. We need the fraction. And tangent is opposite over adjacent. So if I had 3 over 4, 3 is the opposite side. Well, I got to look. What numbers would give me a ratio of 3 over 4? Like if I was simplified, it would be 3 over 4. Hopefully you see that that would have to be 6 over 8. 6 over 8 would reduce to 3 over 4. And so that means 6 is the opposite side, and 8 is the adjacent side. So who is opposite 6? That's angle 2. All right, so this is all I need you to get done on the pink page. That's your graphic organizer. We're just going to use this to help us problem solve. And then on the white sheet of paper, we need to highlight the key information. And so what I need you to highlight on this page are the steps. And let me get my highlighter. So make sure we know the steps for finding the missing side. First, you always are going to mark the angle, okay? Mark the angle, we're going to circle that. Do not use the right angle. We never use the right angle. Then we're going to label the sides in relationship to the angle. That means that's the opposite, the adjacent, the hypotenuse, okay? Then you have to decide which trig function you can make or you can use based on those sides that you have labeled. We're going to write the equation in the portion. And then the last thing is we're going to solve the equation by cross multiplying, okay, using algebra steps. So this key information, this is what needs to be highlighted. We will walk through this together. So the second video that I need you to write or watch is going to be over the homework packet. And that was the one with the multi-step special right triangle. So go to the second video. I'm going to walk through some of those problems that you're going to do. And you need to work on that. I'm going to check for that when I see you on Monday as well. Thanks.